it is not the entire market. And this is the thing. Everyone's like, yeah, but look at this guy who's struggling. Yes, he's struggling. And I feel sorry for the fact that he's struggling. I genuinely do.
Yeah.
But he's not going to crash the market.
So many people are holding onto it to say that, told you, we're right, told you
100%.
Every cycle that comes back to when there's uncertainty, it is an absolute ripe opportunity to be able to utilise creative strategies.
Blood in the streets and property crash, right? Because I hear that every single day. Australia's property is going to crash. It's overcooked. All
People
of those
love
things.
the drama.
One of the huge sources of demand around passive long-term investors is going to vacate a segment of the market, which is perfect for me.
If you had 1,000 very hungry investors, what is just the one thing that you would tell them to focus on while everybody else is distracted by the fear? Welcome to the Freedom Renegades podcast, where today we are talking about the state of the nation and how strategic investors think during uncertain times.
And we are joined with the amazing Andrew Kubenk from WiZDOM Finance, who is a finance strategist and specialist who's been helping everyday investors for decades in the space of finance. So welcome, QB.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Awesome to have you,
really
mate.
Excited. Yeah.
What a topic.
What an absolute topic.
Should we just-
This one gets me really excited every time.
Should we dive in? Hook, line,
Yeah,
and sinker?
absolutely. I mean, there is a lot going on right now. It means a lot. And I know that a lot of people out there are panicking,
Yeah.
Has the media created more fear than the actual budget itself, would you say?
Oh, 100%. But like obviously we had a substantial budget. Some of it we saw coming, some of it we didn't. Look, absolutely without question, the media has grabbed hold of that, sensationalized it. And as a result of that, I think they're driving a lot of the panic rather than when you do the hard numbers of a lot of this. So, I guess consideration number one is you do the hard numbers and how much does this actually matter with regard to, people's wealth creation journeys and their property journeys. And also the other part is that, change always creates opportunity.
Yes.
Right. And so I think everyone is in, skies falling mode.
Yeah.
And, some people I know are out there sort of thinking about what it means, but a lot of people are just in skies of falling mode. And for me, it's not that bad and it's really going to create a lot of opportunity.
Do you think they're reacting emotionally to the headlines rather than actually thinking strategically about the fundamentals of what that actually means to them personally?
Yeah, absolutely. So the interesting thing, and I was thinking about this the other day as well, there's kind of a couple of things that I felt. Like right now, actually, I'm a little bit confused as to how to feel about the budget. And the reason I say that is because on the one hand, in no way, shape or form am I supportive of a lot of the proposed changes. And, again, I don't want to be political here because I'm actually not that political with regard to it.
Yeah.
But I don't know how to feel about it. A lot of the changes that they're proposing are really not good. But on the other hand, I know that I run my own property journey, you guys know.
Yep.
And I'm going to make a ton of money out of this, right?
Yeah.
And so I'm very much confused. Should I be angry about all of the changes and the change that's going to implicate for a lot of people and all of that? Or do I be happy about the fact that I know this is going to be hugely opportunistic for me and we'll make a lot of money out of that?
So in saying that, what are strategic investors and strategic thinkers, what differentiates them and why are they going to make money as opposed to the emotional investors or an emotional buyer out there?
Yeah, I think it's that hunting for opportunity, right? So the emotional reaction, the other thing that I've been, and look, I know we're so over talking about COVID, right? But the interesting thing is,
When we thought we were done with it.
Right, we thought we were done with it, and
we're back here again.
It's a gift that just keeps giving. But here's the interesting thing. I liken a lot of what's going on right now to if we do think back to the first few months of COVID. Okay, so we look at what happened, that the sky was falling, the entire world was going to change, we were all going to go broke, there was going to be blood in the streets, et cetera, et cetera.
Yep.
And realistically, if we look at that, it was only a month or two before the tide had turned substantially. And all of a sudden it was like, actually,
the market's going the other way.
Not only is it not going to be blood in the streets, but economically at least, it's going to go hardcore the other way.
Oh, yeah.
And so, for the people that moved really early in COVID, they did significantly well with their wealth journeys and their property journeys over that period of time as well.
Yep.
And I think, look, it is a little bit different here because a lot of that was fueled by government spending from a COVID perspective. This isn't that. But in the same breath, I think that's a lot of what's happening. When everyone else is panicking, to your question, Em, the strategic investors are going, well, hang on, wait. is there opportunity in this panic?
Yeah.
And I absolutely believe that there is.
Yeah.
Without question.
And I think the thing that I want to get across to most people as well is we're still in such uncertain times.
Absolutely.
And I think because we are in uncertain times, it is like a bit of a, I hate this word, but a trigger response to shit, we're back there again. As you just mentioned, we're back to COVID. And then is this going to play out the same, or is it going to flip the other way?
Yeah.
Most people are going to think, oh, it's going to be like COVID again. Market's going to go 30%, can't wait.
Yeah.
But then there's other people sitting on the fence going, or is it going to go the other way where people are going to get excited thinking it's going to go 30% in the positive,
but
it's actually going to go 30% in the negative.
Yeah. And oddly, I kind of sit in the middle of that, right? So my personal view on this is that, like, I don't expect that we're necessarily, because, the property market has gone really well, depending on what market we're talking about.
Yeah.
The property market in general in Australia has gone really well. And we all know, and we're all smart enough to know, that it couldn't sustain the level of growth that it was having. So it was always going to calm down. It was always going to, it was never going to continue to be sustained. I mean, don't get me wrong, I would love for it to.
If you're in the market, you'd love to, but it's not sustainable.
If you're listening, market, please do that.
Yeah.
But it's not going to happen. It was always going to calm down. From my perspective, I believe that we're not going to see massive booms out of this, but equally, a lot of people have said this is going to be blood in the streets. We're going to have a property crash and all of those things. I don't believe that for a second.
No.
And it's because, when we talk about, okay, the emotional reaction to this is, oh my God, blood in the streets. They're taking things away. Property's not going to be on the nose. It's going to throw a lot of people out. People are going to be broke. All of that kind of stuff. Honestly, when you look at that underlying fundamentals, we come back to emotional or strategic. It's like, okay, well, that's the emotional reaction. What's the strategic reaction? Like, what is the economic data suggesting? What does this actually mean in hard dollars for all of these people? What is the likelihood that people actually go broke and as a result of that are offloading property? Because, apparently that's what's going to happen.
Yeah.
And when you look at the underlying fundamental economic data, there's nothing that supports that case, in my opinion.
No, go on.
I was just going to say, I think also now more than ever, it's probably so important to actually know that there are so many markets within the market.
Absolutely.
So when people say, the market's going to crash, well, some markets probably are. As you said, there may be some blood in the streets, in some locations, some suburbs, some states.
Yeah.
Other parts of other states or other suburbs are going to thrive. Like, I think it's going to be that balance between the two.
And on that as well too, I think that, I'll ask you this question. How much do you think that said government decisions or narratives or budgets, for example, where we're at right now, how much of it do you think is reality and actual, and how much do you think that it's the buyer's psychological response to said announcements?
Look, particularly in this case, if we specifically talk about the negative gearing changes and the capital gains changes, they are substantially psychological as opposed to hard numbers. So when you actually run modelling forward as to, okay, the old rules versus new rules, and again, sorry, just to backstep for a second, we spoke about uncertainty. Let's be honest, at this point in time, we're not even sure exactly what it's going to look like.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? So we're all reacting to this when we haven't actually got an outcome here. And we haven't got hard black and white and all of that. And so the psychological impact of that is substantial. And the reason I say that is, in Australia, very property-heavy market. We love our property in Australia, no question about that, if you compare that on global standards. And then you look at negative gearing and capital gains tax as being, hey, the way that you can create wealth and have a great retirement is by investing in property, staying in property for the long term, getting capital growth, et cetera, et cetera. Like, that is hard-baked into the Australian economy and the Australian psyche.
Yep.
And so I think that's what you're seeing now. You are seeing a psychological impact of a huge rug pull. But again, when you do the modelling and the numbers, it's not that different. It's not that big a deal.
No.
Right?
And without being biased, I guess you could call me, but that's why I keep coming back to time and time again is flipping and what we do in property to get in and to get out of the same market gives me peace of mind, allows me to breathe, because you're right in saying we have no idea what's coming. None of us do. We don't know what's around the corner. We don't know what's on the horizon. Things may change drastically next month. We don't know. No one predicted that there was going to be all of the fuel shortages and that crisis or the war or whatever. Yeah. And look, I just think that we need to be vigilant and always stay on alert. But if you can find a strategy whereby you either minimise your risk and be able to create win-win scenarios, which we can talk about later, or you can get in and get out of the same market and be able to create a manufactured growth scenario. I think, honestly, if I was a betting person, which I'm not, I would say that moving forward, it's going to be sort of, I guess, the safest haven to play in terms of investment and where to park your money as an investor. What would you say to that?
Yeah, absolutely. So again, I am not overreacting to a lot of these changes on the basis of also I'm very active in property, and I'm hugely supportive of active property strategy as opposed to passive.
Yeah.
So, does this rug pull impact passive investors? Absolutely.
Yeah.
Does it impact active investors? Not really.
Not as much anyway. Because,
Not as much. Yeah, I mean, it's easy to argue that property as an investment strategy is less attractive than it has previously been. Yeah. But again, which property are we talking about? If you just want to buy a good property in a decent location and sit on that forever and a day and get capital growth with negative gearing, that's a problem now.
Yeah. And that was what you would class as a passive investor.
That's absolutely passive investors.
And there's where also in lies the opportunity if you're an active investor.
Yes.
Because there's going to be less competition. There's going to be less need, less want.
So if we think that through, and again, I think the psychological embedded behaviour in Australia around, you have to negatively gear to make money out of property. Yeah. You have to have great CGT. I think that particularly that negative gearing part, that is so hard baked that I absolutely believe that passive investors will chase that.
Yeah.
So, in other words, if we continue to get negatively gearing on new builds, they're going to buy new builds.
Yeah.
Now, is that a great strategy? Hell no.
No.
Okay. I would encourage everybody. We would be here all day talking about all the reasons to why that's not a good idea. However, passive lazy investing, they'll go, okay, I get negative gearing. That's a good thing. My parents are my parents' parents, where we, often have been educated.
Yep.
Tell us that that's a good thing, and that's where they'll chase.
Yeah.
What does it decrease? It decreases demand on established property, which personally, again, this is my excited part of how I'm reacting to this.
Yep. Yeah.
That's my bread and butter.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, that's where I want to play. Yep. I will go in, I will buy cheap, I will add value, through an active strategy.
Yeah.
I will pay my tax, which is not capital gains tax anyway, it's income tax because, I'm active.
Yep.
And I'll replicate.
Yeah.
And for me, I think that one of the huge sources of demand around passive long-term investors is going to vacate a segment of the market, which is perfect for me.
Yeah.
Oh.
So now I'm fighting other developers and owner-occupiers, right? I'm like, bring it on.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
one of the biggest excitements for me about uncertainty in the market, and it's always cyclical, right? So we go through property cycles, but every cycle that comes back to when there's uncertainty, it is an absolute ripe opportunity to be able to utilize creative strategies and no money down strategies and strategies where it's not just all about you. It's a win-win scenario for both yourself, the homeowner, possibly some other investors along the way. So I just think it's the most exciting time to be alive when it comes to investing. And if you can get yourself educated and actually learn to think outside the box, learn to think differently. Anybody really in this market can make some really.
Well, I think even just to interject there quickly, an amazing thing you just brought up, QB, was the fact that are you a passive investor or you're an active investor? And I think for a lot of people out there, whether you're starting your investment journey or you're a seasoned investor, for instance, if you're in a PAYG, for instance, your investment strategy is going to be completely different for someone who's actively creating their incomes and creating their profits out of being actively flipping real estate, for instance.
Yeah.
So I think for a lot of people out there, for these uncertain times, you really need to sit down and actually work out, where am I? Like, where's my investment journey at? Where am I at in that journey?
Yeah.
And what's my best step forward, for instance?
Yeah, I absolutely agree with that. And even at active, we're not talking about necessarily, because you guys know I run a large finance business. Obviously, I'm really busy flying around the country, talking to great people like you. But it's not full time necessarily either. So a lot of the people that we work with, and certainly, your community, it's a case of, a lot of people are working their normal full time jobs, and then they're running active property strategy on the side.
Yeah.
And the cool thing about active property strategy generally is that usually it doesn't really matter what the market's doing.
Yeah.
Right, because it's the activity which is causing the value.
That's right.
Right, so flat markets. Let's assume for a second that all of this plays out, that Australia slows down a little bit from a property growth, and we go into a flat market. I've got zero concern about a flat market.
Same.
Because I've got baked in profitability.
Yeah.
And so as a result of that, like, up markets are nice because we get a little kicker.
Yeah.
But let's not misunderstand them. We're also paying more for the replacement property in the next deal. We've all experienced that. And so, an up market is a great environment to work in. A flat market can often be a better one.
Yeah.
And the reason I say that is if you look back historically, in the hot markets, like what we've been dealing with for the last few years, you have to compete so hard for the property that you're often overpaying for it.
Yes.
Right? You know, we've been trying to desperately buy out the owner occupiers and all the FOMO people that are just emotionally falling in love with the property, all of those things. And so we've had to fight really hard with them and overpay in a lot of cases for property to be able to get in the deal. Now, because of the rising market, it hasn't mattered. But I would take a flat market every day because I agree 100%. With you, Em, that it opens up all of these other possibilities around doing creative deals.
Yeah.
Yes.
Which we don't get in a hot market because you've just got to get in, buy and hope, right?
Well, you can still get them. Like
but it's harder.
Yeah, like we've done creative strategies in a hot market,
true.
but it's, gone from the days where we did, say, 10 option agreements one year to the next year when the market was hot, we might have got 1 or 2 over the line. So, but even in that, I loved when you just hit the nail on the head then about what market are we in currently. We've been in a hot market for the last few years.
Yeah.
Most of Australia has been, most markets within markets have been hot.
Yes.
This, not even going to say downturn, this uncertainty is just going to remove a lot of the new players.
I agree.
That have come in, thought property was always going to continue. This rocket ship was just going to keep going to the moon. We're going to see 30% increases year on year. That's not going to happen. It was never going to always continue that way.
It's probably going to remove people that aren't willing or don't have a desire to think outside the box and think differently and just want to be too, I suppose, for want of a better word, two-dimensional about it.
Yeah.
So I think, if you're somebody who's willing to be able to think outside the box, I keep referring to that term, but it's true. If you're willing to think differently, learn some new strategies and actually have a desire to want to help people or enhance the lives of others in the process, which generally speaking comes along with creative strategies, right? Because in order to use a creative strategy in the first place, you've got to have a problem to therefore offer up a solution.
Absolutely.
So I think it's an amazing time to be alive in this particular strategy. I love when we have flat markets or downturn markets and you can implement these strategies because you genuinely do feel good about it. You're helping someone in the process.
Absolutely, yeah. I agree with you on that. There is genuinely, and again, for people that haven't experienced this, it's the lazy investor that's going to, let's be honest, right?
Yeah.
Like so lazy investing has worked really well for the last few years
Yeah.
because, of course, it's been driven by amazing property growth, right?
Capital
So you can
growth,
go
yeah.
and put your foot on absolutely
You've been able to
anything.
get a return on your property in the last 2
market
years
has
as opposed to the
killed
last 10
it for
years.
you. Absolutely. And so right now, the reason you're seeing everyone in full-blown meltdown, of course, is because there's been a huge rug pull on that.
100%.
And they're the ones that are screaming,
Yeah.
right? But I love active property strategy because it genuinely creates an opportunity to be able to create a win-win-win.
Yeah.
So you win, the other parties win, everybody
Agent wins, everyone wins.
Yeah, and I think that when you talk about creative property strategy, I think a lot of people immediately, and again, this is psychology speaking here.
Think you must be taking advantage.
Right, you're taking advantage.
Yeah.
It's like,
We get that a lot.
It's the complete opposite.
It's the opposite.
It's the dead opposite. You
Yeah.
are genuinely solving a problem for someone else, and you're doing well out of it in the future. Like, who doesn't want
If you
that?
were
That's what
taking
we use that
advantage of
for our-
someone, it would be very short-lived and nobody would want to do
Correct.
it. The fact that people want to participate
Correct.
tells me that,
Like every time we negotiate a creative strategy, nearly 9 times out of 10 at the end of that discussion, the vendor themselves are like, so everyone wins.
they're already telling their
like,
friends.
You're going to make some more money. You're going to get out of this trouble you're in.
Yes.
We're going to make some money along the way as well because that's
Yeah.
fair. If we're going to invest this money, does it fair that we get a return on that money?
Yeah.
And the agent's sitting there and he's like, I didn't get the win because I've solved this person's problem, but you're going to give me the property back on sell again.
Yep.
So at the end of the meeting, it's like a shock wave.
Yeah,
So they're
it
like,
genuinely is.
You're not here just to screw me down and steal my property.
No.
Well,
and of
we're
course,
not,
they get to the end, and they get to the end of that, and it's like, thank you.
Yeah.
I cannot thank you enough.
And they tell their friends.
Of course, for the outcome that you've created for
Yeah.
me, because until you came along,
Yeah.
I didn't even know I could do that.
And the perpetual growth from that because people tell people.
Yeah.
So it genuinely, it does really, really feel good. You can solve a problem for people. And it's just, I think it's a different psychology that's just not something we're exposed to. It's not something that we learn.
Yeah, so I think a lot about this, and I think a lot about financial literacy generally. It's something that I speak to a lot. It's something that I'm quite passionate about in Australia in general. And I think part of the problem that we have, less so in the investment community because we talk a lot about this, but if we talk about just normal everyday people going about their normal everyday lives, if we think about where we're learning about money from and what that looks like, I am unsurprised. that we have the outcomes that we do.
We learn most about our finances from people who don't have them
right
under control.
Absolutely.
Or have,
and even before that,
experience,
let's start with school, right? So, you go through school and you learn the maths of all of that, but not the psychology that sits behind any of that, or the mindset that sits behind any of that.
Yeah.
And then if we consider that most educational sources, for most people, again, it's like, oh, well, okay, now I'm thinking about going and buying a house. What do I do? Well, there's only two conversations normally that happen. They go and see their parents. Why? Because they bought a house.
Yeah.
Right? And usually, and again, nothing against any parents here, nothing against anybody but that's what happens.
Yeah.
And so their educational source is their parents. Or alternately, they'll go and see a financial institution because everyone knows you need money to buy a property. And so you go and see a bank.
Yep.
And that's what's happening, right? So unfortunately, we have people who have never been educated themselves and don't necessarily have a great money mindset themselves, who are then educating the next generation. And the other key source of information that we've got is a completely vested interest.
Yeah.
In the sense of financial institutions.
Yes.
It's like, well, I mean, are we surprised that people don't really understand or don't have a good money mindset across Australia? Well, no. Not at all.
What do you, sorry, Az, go on.
No, I was just going to play to that where so we have this conversation all the time with young investors feeling like they're never going to afford the property, they're never going to be able to find their own home. Mum and dad's feeling guilty that they're sitting on $1 million of equity that they can't release because they might not be in a position to do so. But they also don't want to sell the family home because they're thinking, well, I'm going to have to leave it to my kids. If I don't do that, then they're not going to have anything.
Yeah.
There's so much opportunity out there still that, again, we had this conversation earlier about that instant gratification where people want to live in their dream home immediately.
Oh, yeah. Kills
like
me.
We still don't live in our dream home. No. We live in a beautiful home. We live in a beautiful location. We choose location over over the house itself.
Yeah.
But if I was to start again, and people are saying, if you started again, would it be as easy? Well, fuck, it wasn't easy. I can tell you now, it hasn't been easy.
But it was simple.
But it was simple.
Yeah.
Like there's certain things, and we're not the first people to do this.
No.
There's been generations before us that have done exactly what we're doing.
Yeah.
So for the younger generation, yes, it's hard to get into the market if you are only listening to your parents who have their one home, or you're only listening to your uncle at the barbecue who has maybe one or two investment properties.
Yeah.
But they started when they could probably get into those properties with 5% deposits.
Yes.
Yeah.
You've now got to get a 20% deposit. I get that's hard.
Yes.
That's not easy.
Yes.
And it's not simple to save up a 20% deposit. But if you start thinking differently and start thinking, okay, how can I work with other homeowners? How can I work with investors? How can I joint venture with people to get into my first deal?
Yeah.
To create a deposit for the second deal, to then move on to the third. And we spoke about this earlier about climbing blocks or climbing, like, climbing steps in the sense of like your first property isn't your dream home.
No.
You ask any investor out there, and 9 times out of 10, by the time an active investor can get that dream home, they don't want it.
No.
Because they know what it's going to cost them.
Yes.
It's actually the last thing you actually want because you're like, I can actually go and make so much more money as investing over here as opposed to having the big, beautiful McMansion that I'm never going to use. Or
How frustrating is that?
The one bedroom, the one kitchen.
It's something that personally frustrates me. The more educated and the more I've learned, and of course I've dedicated a huge amount of time and my life to that, the more I learn, the more frustrated I become with it because you can't unlearn all the things that you know. Right. So I'm like you. I'm like, oh my God, if I could wave a magic wand and just go buy the beachfront property, spend a lot of money on it, and I can't do it anymore, and I wouldn't be able to enjoy it. And it's so frustrating.
But
you
don't want to, knowing what you know. In fact, you'll be really excited to know this, and sort of speaking into what Az was just talking about in terms of the younger generation and affordability and all that stuff. But having been at our last event as one of our speakers, you would be aware of Brent, who was 18, and Summer, who was 15, the two young, totally unrelated, that were at our event, which was so super exciting.
Yes, it is.
Well, I'll have you know that both of those students are now in deals.
How awesome's that?
How awesome's that? So we are absolutely on a mission to infiltrate in some way, shape or form into that younger generation to help them believe and shift the narrative, shift the mindset that is conditioned.
Yeah, and not follow their friends. I mean, the first thing is question what they know. Right? Like in the sense of, okay, these are all the things that I've learned. Who have I learned that from?
Yeah.
You know, what were they experiencing at the time that they went to the market and all of that?
Yeah.
And then also it's keeping up with the friends.
Yeah.
Right? And all of that stuff. Like I see that happen so many times. Yeah. More so to my clients' kids, you know. So that's what we're doing a lot as well. Like these days, a lot of the conversations we're having is, how do I get my kids into property and what does that look like?
Yeah.
And again, one of my first pieces of advice is don't do what your friends are doing.
Yeah.
Because the likelihood is they're going to overspend. They'll do a 95% loan. It's going to be in a greenfield, new house and land package, that kind of stuff, because they love that stuff, right?
Oh, mate.
And it's like, don't do that.
Yeah.
Because yes, you can do that, and yes, you're going to get the sugar hit. of, oh, look at me, and aren't I happy, and aren't I winning at life because I have the nice home?
Mm-hmm.
And unfortunately, you're probably setting yourselves up for putting yourself a decade behind or 20 years behind where you could otherwise be if you played your property journey out differently.
It's just a dopamine hit, that's all it is.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because you'd see it all the time, I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, but say the parents that do go and refinance their property because they might be able to pull out 200 or 300 grand to then give the kids to go and put that down as a deposit on their brand new 4-bedroom, 2-bathroom home in the new estate. They pay 800 for it. By the time of completion, it's actually only worth 700.
Right.
The parents have already invested the 300.
Yes.
If they went to sell that property, they've actually lost money. Like they've actually done, and they're also, as you just said then perfectly, I think they've actually done the kids a disservice in a sense because they've locked them into that 30-year mortgage on a property that's not going to grow at an average of the 4 to 6% that most other markets do.
No, absolutely right.
Going back to all of the narrative around the fear of what's going on, because it is still really bloody real.
Oh, it's
out
raw.
there.
It's super
It's so
raw.
real. It's
super
so
raw.
new and raw.
And it's being heavily driven, again, not to circle back over or to labour a point, but it's being driven by the media, right?
100%. And I was going to ask you actually.
Yeah.
No, sorry, you've finished what you said. Sorry. That was
no. So one of the things that, again, this is the most eloquently that I've heard it put, is that right now we're living in a attention economy.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right? So everyone is competing for attention. Everyone wants your eyeballs. Everyone wants to be able to sell the ad space and do all of that stuff.
Yeah.
And we're all smart enough to know positive news doesn't sell, right? Negative, scary, the world's going to crash, all of that stuff.
Yeah.
That's what grabs eyeballs. It's what holds eyeballs. And as a result of that, people get
Can we change that narrative?
Oh,
do we
God,
have the power? All you guys out there, do we have the power to change that narrative of let's spread more positivity, let's actually share positive news, and let's squash the shit out of the mainstream media and all the negative bullshit?
Yeah.
Like let's just choose what we actually want to focus on.
Yeah.
Well, one of the questions that I was going to ask you actually is what role does Australia's housing undersupply still play despite all the fear? There is so much fear out there, but the fact is we still have a huge undersupply.
Oh, yeah.
For the amount of demand.
Yeah, so let's come back to, okay, we have the psychological reaction, we have the media, we have all the negativity and all of those things. So what are strategic people doing? What are educated people doing? What are they thinking about? And these, thankfully, are the conversations I'm involved in every day, and they're wonderful, right? So don't get me wrong. Every day I'll get a phone call, which is the panicked, oh my God, the sky is falling, da-da-da-da, and it's like, wait, just take a breath and let's think about what do the underlying fundamentals look like.
Yeah.
So if we look at that, and again, there's a media problem, but so many times everyone goes straight to America.
Yeah.
Right? We're not America. Let's understand that.
Yeah.
Exactly like you said, as we're markets within markets and markets within markets, right? Yeah. So firstly, we're Australia. Australia's economy is in a good position right now. Okay. We have huge infrastructure spend that is happening. There is migration is obviously very strong and isn't necessarily going to go away, right? And I know a lot of people blame migration for, the expensive property and the fact that it's grown, all of those things. There's a lot more to it than just migration, okay? The undersupply issue is something that is not going away quickly. And the reason I say that is this. Look back 20 years. So don't believe me, believe the data.
Believe the data,
Right? This is independent data that is put together. It looks at the nation. We have been in undersupply flat out for 20 years. The only time we weren't in oversupply was for a short period of time at the start of COVID when we shut all of our borders.
Yeah.
Okay? So again, we're back at COVID. Isn't COVID wonderful? The gift that keeps giving.
2.0.
Anyway, we shut our borders and we went into oversupply for a very short period of time. So the question for me is, okay, what is going to solve that undersupply problem? And from my perspective, I say nothing. The demand isn't going anywhere. Australia is going to continue to be a country that people are going to want to come to from a location perspective and continue to want to live in. Love this country. Why wouldn't we want to live here?
Yeah.
And so as a result of that, and where's the new technology coming to change? Now,
Right.
I know we're seeing, there's some changing in things like affordable housing and a few bunch of, but again, is that wholesale going to change our supply from the 145,000 odd dwellings a year to the 250 plus that we need? No. 3D printing houses. Yep,
Yes.
it's really interesting, right? I find this fascinating. And don't get me wrong, I watch it like a hawk.
Yeah.
But is that going to wholesale change how we build houses? I don't think in the short term. And the reason I say that is we pretty much build houses like we did 40, 50 years ago.
Well, the
Still
thing
now.
that we've
Still
also...
now.
Will that change in the next 12 months?
Well, the thing
Not
is,
in 12 months, it's
no.
not going to.
Not in 12 months, but even the supply and demand. Like we've also had so many, thousands of builders get kicked in the guts over the last few years and go bust and close their doors because they're like, well, I'm not going to work for nothing. And most of them have been for the last couple of years, locked in fixed contracts, the pricing of materials, the price of the house in the back end isn't worth what it's cost to build, all the things. So to try and say that we're going to fix this housing problem with the supply and demand issue in the next even couple of years
No.
is ridiculous.
Yeah, and I like you. Like obviously, when it comes to economic, and I'm a huge economic nerd. Most people aren't. You have lives. I'm jealous of you.
Put your cardigan back on, mate. Put your spreadsheets out. Let's go.
I tell you, I absorb way too much economic data. But like you, the reality for me is I go, okay, well, am I trying to predict the next 10 or 20 years? No.
Yeah.
What do I need to be able to predict here? I need to be able to predict a 1 to 5 year time horizon because that's the kind of horizon that most of my active property strategy is going to play out over.
Yeah.
And so as a result of that, that's what I'm looking at. And I agree with you wholeheartedly. It's not like a spaceship is going to turn up from outer space and gift us a new building technology.
Nor is there going to be a max exodus of the people that are already in this country to go and find shelter, elsewhere. As you said, we do live in an amazing country, as much as we've got some shit going on right now.
Sure.
But we're also still very, very, very underpopulated for our size and opportunity.
Yeah. And then there's the other part of it as well, and someone can argue against me if they like, and they go, but the government's doing all of these things to increase supply. Sorry, but again, not political. But what I'll say is,
I haven't visibly seen that of you.
Yeah. This is the thing. Let's look at history to maybe suggest how that's going to play out, and that has been the narrative now for an extended period of time.
Yeah.
And has even bumped the needle, moved the needle? No. And it's very unlikely to in the short to medium term in the future.
So how should smart investors be thinking and playing out in this particular market then? What would be how would you...
Yeah, I would say embrace the change.
Yeah.
In the sense of change brings opportunity. Don't think that it doesn't. Opportunity never vanishes. It grows a little bit. It diminishes a little bit. But it does move.
Yeah.
Okay, and this is the thing. What we did 10 years ago, 20 years ago isn't going to work today.
Yes.
In fact, what we did 6 months ago, 12 months ago may not work today.
Yeah.
So expect that, embrace the change, and as a result of that, look for where the opportunity is. And for me, opportunity for a long time has been in active property strategy, and it will continue to be in active property strategy. Passive investment, yes, it's gone well, but it's not dead. I don't want to say anything's dead, but it's on the nose.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And as you said, it was because it had an easy run or a simple run and a very, very lucrative run for the last few years. So people just getting in to invest and then get some good cash flow and have some amazing growth.
Yeah.
If you thought that was going to be the new norm, every single person would have at least 1 or 2 properties.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
With the recent budget announcements, which aren't concrete yet, by the way, everyone's panicking over nothing set in stone yet. But there was a lot of other things that came into play other than just obviously the standouts like negative gearing and so forth. But there were a lot of potential, I'll say, because it hasn't happened yet, but tax implications.
Yeah.
So I know that's putting the fear of God into a lot of people.
Yes.
What's your thoughts?
Yeah, so this is what I'm most upset about, and I'm in most in danger of getting political here, because the reality for me is this seemed like policy on the fly and a tax grab, right? If I'm honest, that's what it looks like. There wasn't any talk about it. There wasn't any, leaking to the market before the budget came out or anything like that.
It was a shock.
That it was even being looked at. And so, it was a shock. It was a shock to all of us. I am genuinely concerned that because they're dealing with it, like policy on the fly has a tendency to not be done well. And so I think they're making a lot of mistakes. The other frustration for me here around, so specifically here we're talking about, 30% taxing of trust distributions. We're talking about bucket companies and potential double tax of bucket companies and all of that kind of stuff.
Yep.
The thing that really upsets me most about this is that it seems to me that the implication of these changes has not been
thought about, not at all.
And look, again, if we're speaking to normal people that they play in a PAYG world and they don't really understand all of this stuff, the amount of people that this would have touched is phenomenal.
Oh,
absolutely phenomenal.
Huge.
Yeah. So, and we're not just talking about, because this is the thing, right? They hold up the rich guys.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. It's not just the top 1%.
Right. Okay, here's the thing about, being fortunate enough, very grateful for the fact that I have some level of wealth behind me. It's not going to hurt me, right? Let's be honest, because I have the ability to be able to pay for great advice. I have the ability to be able to move structures around. I'm active in property strategy. So as a result of that, I'm coming in and out of deals and I can structure differently.
Yep.
And I know the policy on the fly will likely create loopholes and I'll take advantage of them.
Yeah.
Legally, completely legally and above board, but they will create an opportunity for me. I'm very sure about it and I will be looking for all the fine print.
They're not going to shoot themselves in the foot.
No.
Yeah.
No. And so it's not that. What this has touched and what really upsets me about it is we're talking about tradies.
Yeah.
You know, half
Everyday
of the small business.
businesses.
Small businesses.
Mum and dad businesses. Yeah. Your cafes that you go and eat
Yes.
at, and your restaurants that you go out for dinner to, and the retail shops that
all your B2Bs.
And it's not even about just paying more tax, okay, because that's one thing, right? And of course, we can all be upset about that because no one wants to pay tax, let's be honest. But it's not that. They've blown up their structuring, right? And it's like, okay, well, fine. They're going to allow for restructuring of businesses and blah, blah, blah. Sure. But that's a lot of work.
Yeah.
Right?
A lot of money as well.
A lot of money, a lot of work, a lot of time, a lot of effort, a lot of energy.
And anyone that's ever run a business knows that you do not have time.
No. And this is the
last thing you have.
That's one of the things that like frustrated me the most out of it. It's not just real estate based, this whole budget blowout and the capital gains and about time all these rich landlords pay all this tax and about time blah blah. It's the business. It's the mum and dad business operators.
Yeah.
It's the business operators that have been either startups or might have been handed down from mum and dad. Been around for 30, 40 years. A restaurant that's been in your local town for the last 40 years.
Yeah.
It's the mum and dad investors that have owned and held property that people are able to rent from.
Yeah.
And that they've been crunched not only by interest rates, but now it's going to be tax on top of that. And
your favourite online shop that you buy all your activewear from.
Absolutely.
All these things. Everyone's affected.
Yeah. And that really, really frustrates me. These are not rich people. These are normal people.
No.
They're effectively wage earning. They run discretionary trusts on the
Just
basis
out there
of, yes, of
giving
course
it a
they
go.
minimise tax, right? Because that was part of it.
Yeah.
But they've blown up all of their structuring. And that is going to, again, it is going to create so much unnecessary work through the entire economy. That really, really upsets me.
Yeah.
And so again, I feel in two minds about this. Why? Because policy on the fly will probably create loopholes, and as a result of those loopholes, I'll take advantage of that and I'll continue to pay the amount of tax, that I'm paying now.
Yeah.
And I will put energy and effort into that.
Yeah.
However, on the flip side of that, I feel for all of the people that have been absolutely slammed by this or continue to be slammed by this. So I can only hope that the normal legislative process here plays out really intelligently, and some cool heads and some good minds come to this and go, actually, this really wasn't our intent here of blowing up everybody's structuring or the structuring that's been done
destroying
in
the world we once
25 years.
knew. Yeah.
I don't know one person that I've spoken to from every different walk of life imaginable over the last couple of weeks that is in favour of what's been announced or can see any logic behind the reason that it has been.
Yeah.
It's a very wild time to be alive.
And if I was a self-interested prick, let's not forget, right? We are a full financial services business. We have an advisory business. We have an accounting business. Like, we are going to be incredibly busy for the next 3 years. Helping people through this and transitioning through this journey.
Yeah.
Like, if I was a self-interested prick, I'd be saying, you beauty, government,
thank
for
you.
creating so much,
Thank
work
you for doubling
me.
my clientele.
Right. But I actually don't want it because it's just dumb over a tax grab.
Let's circle it back to real estate and investors and how it's actually going to play out, because we had this conversation a couple of weeks ago when it very first got announced. And from the perspective of structuring and trusts and so on and so forth, it actually won't be as diabolical for property investors, perhaps, as everyone is jumping to the conclusion that it will be.
Yes, that's right. So what it'll mean is, obviously, the way that we were structuring previously, discretionary trusts were great. They gave us flexibility. They gave us asset protection. They gave us a whole bunch of things. Obviously, we're going to have to look at our structuring and what that structuring looks like moving forward. It's going to be different. There's no question about that. But I agree with you in the sense of, okay, is this going to kill everything? Is it going to? No. The reality is we'll create new structures. It will be different. There'll be a different new way of doing things. We just don't know what the detail looks like. So as you can imagine, ever since budget night, there's been an enormous amount of brains that have been almost solely focused on this.
Yeah.
And we've got some really, really great ideas about how to bring asset protection, structuring, good tax advantage and all of those things into people's property journeys moving forward.
Yep.
Now, we're not saying anything more than that at this point in time because we don't know the detail.
We don't know. Yeah.
Yeah. And I would argue, in fact, that anyone that is saying this is the new way cannot be correct at this point in time because we don't know the detail.
Right.
Yeah. And now, it might
there's
play
no
out that they're correct.
Yeah.
But at this, there's no way.
It's like saying there's a final destination in place. So here's the map. Well, there's no final destination as yet.
Yeah,
so any map
you're
getting towards the location. You might end up around that area.
Yeah.
But you're not going to actually have the dead set. This is the fastest way possible.
And I think really when it comes down to it, there is so much focus on saving, and how that's going to detrimentally affect us. Whereas I feel that the majority of people have lost sight of the way forward, which is let's stop focusing on how to save ourselves rich and let's focus on actually making the money. Because at the end of the day, we're all going to pay tax, But if you're making money in this country, you're going to be paying tax. Now, what that is arguable at this stage.
Yeah.
But the fact is, especially with flipping, for example, as a manufactured growth strategy, we can still make money right now because there's still an undersupply and an over demand. Yeah. And in this country, it's the perfect storm, really. Now more than ever, people still need somewhere to live. And at the end of the day, they want somewhere nice to live. Yeah. So I think there is still an absolute opportunity to go out there and make money and focus on the thing that you can have control over, which, is making the money. And then, there'll always be a way that you can structure yourself on the back end to be able to minimise the tax, but let's not focus on trying to save ourselves rich because the government isn't coming to save you. Taxes aren't coming to save you. No. We need to take it into our own hands and take the power back and be more strategic about actually creating the money to begin with.
Yeah, well, one of the things I'm really passionate about is people getting safe. Okay, so what I mean by that is that, I love to see people get into a situation where they've got a debt-free home, right? So they've got their roof over their head. We obviously all understand how important that is. So you put yourself in a situation where you've got a nice debt-free home and you've got active or passive property strategy or other, interests. I'm not solely property. I love property. It's a huge vehicle for me, but I'm not solely property. And as a result of that, you're creating that passive stable income. Because I do think that for that first, point or the first station on the journey of wealth is getting safe. And then it's getting wealthy, if that makes sense, and being able to springboard off of that. So depending on where people are with their journey, that's a huge focus for me. It's like, okay, well, let's use active property strategy to make great chunks of money, use that to pay off all of our non-tax effective debt. In other words, our home loan, get our home free, right? And it doesn't mean it's going to be unleveraged because you're going to still leverage off of that, but you're going to do it for good investment deals. And so, that gets you really safe and you've got that roof over your head and you've got your flag in the ground. And then from there, we will work on our active and passive property strategies and other strategies to be able to create that ongoing wealth so that you are less reliant on PAYG income, you're less reliant on that job. Like that's what I want for every Australian family.
100%. Couldn't have said it better myself, really.
It's what gets me out of bed every day. Going, okay, who can I hopefully touch and get this message through? Because there is another way and you can create it. Now, is it easy? Or is someone going to fall out of the sky and give this to you? No. Easy.
I wish. Where are you, mate?
I mean, weirdly, I do actually think that it is easy, but it's work, right?
It's not easy, it's simple.
Yes. It's simple,
it's just
straightforward.
A formula, it's just,
Yeah, but you've got to do the work, right? No one's going to gift you this. No. And if you're reliant on that, unfortunately, I've got bad news for it, right? I talk about the property grind or the grind period of your wealth journey. Every investor that I've ever known has gone through that grind period. Right? You guys have ground. We've ground and we continue to grind.
Continue to grind.
So, but everyone's going to do the grind, right? And the grind isn't fun. It's hard. But you're getting to that place that you want to get to, and as a result of that, you learn the lessons, and it gets easier, and it gets better, and it gets more.
I was going to say it is temporary. It's in the beginning, it may feel like a grind, but once you've actually mastered the well-oiled engine, and
it's not even mastered. It's just once you've even started to take the steps in the right direction. Like
it's just
some people's journeys are definitely easier than others. Don't get me wrong. Some people seem to just have that perfect deal every time they do that one development and it all goes correct and nothing goes wrong and they make a bunch of money.
I don't know. Yeah,
those stories are out there. They're very, very few. But more moving towards, as you said, like about the passive investment and getting people to that point. And talking about the tax, we get told all the time, what about tax? I'm like, we're lucky enough. We live in a country. We earn money. We pay tax. There's ways of minimising that and spreading it out. But if you were to make $100,000 for simple terms, and you had to pay $50,000 of that in tax, worst case scenario, you still had a PAYG or you still had a business operating that was your full-time work. This was on the side. What person in their right mind would not like to earn an extra $50,000 for part-time hours?
Absolutely.
If I said to you, do an hour a night or 4 hours, 5 hours a week, and in 6 months' time you're going to authorise this little development or project or flip, and it makes you $50,000 in your pocket. 9 times out of 10, everyone will be like, I'd like to do one of them. You can.
Yeah, absolutely.
100%. And look, one of the things that why we flip is, especially at the moment, is the volatility in the interest rates. And, there's a big reason of why we like to use manufactured growth strategies, and you're in and you're out of the same market. But we do hold property. But those that we do hold are positively geared, cash flow positive, because I can't understand the theory of spending $1 to save 20 cents with negative gearing.
It works for certain people in certain jobs and salaries and things like that. But for our active, passive...
Sure,
But how much do you believe that interest rates play a part in long-term investors and housing demand? Like, what do you?
Oh, look.
Can you speak to interest rates and where you think that's
Yeah, absolutely. So in the mass market, again, so when we talk about normal everyday people and they've got a home loan, all of those things, I'm going to say that I feel that the psychological impact of interest rates is more substantial than the financial.
Bang.
Yeah. Right. So again, whenever there's an announcement, it's 0.25, da. Everyone's like, oh my God, again, the sky's falling. How am I going to survive? And I do appreciate that. There's a lot of people that is substantial too, and I don't want to take away from that, and I don't want to play that down. However, again, I'm going to say the majority of it's psychological, because for a lot of people it means, okay, my repayment has now changed by $90 or $100 a month.
Yeah.
Yes, for a lot of people that is a lot of money, but for most people it's not.
Yeah.
And so psychological impact much more substantial than the financial impact when it comes to interest rates.
Yeah.
That said, there's another thing that happens with interest rates as well. And that's the impact of interest rates is only actually fully factored in about 18 months into the future. So I think people want to remember that as well.
Yeah.
Because yes, there's the psychological impact that happens day one, and that does change a bunch of behaviours. But for it fully to play out in the economy, we're talking 18 months in the future, which is a long time for interest rate changes to actually play out.
Yeah.
And I think it's very easy to forget whenever we get a reduction or whenever we get an increase. It's very easy to forget that that's happened very quickly, right? We've all moved on, or the next thing's happened, or the media is now talking about the next disaster so they can have our eyeballs for a little bit longer.
100%.
Yeah. Forget about these. Look over
right. Here, guys, shiny object.
Yeah.
And so it's key jangling, isn't it? They're just jangling some keys. Hey, guys.
Hey, look over here.
And so, but from an interest rate perspective in the Australian economy, it's quite difficult to predict at this point in time as to the budgetary impact.
Yep.
But what I'm going to say is the combined effect of some recent interest rate increases plus the budget effect and how that's going to go. So how much uncertainty is going to be out there in the normal marketplace.
Yeah.
I think that is going to have an impact on the future of interest rates. So if you'd asked me before the budget announcement, I would have said to you, we will probably see another 0.25% increase before the end of the year.
Yep.
And we may see 0.5% overall, but that's probably the end of it then.
Yep.
And that's absolutely to deal with the baked-in inflation that we're having and we're having to deal with, or the Reserve Bank needs to deal with in the Australian economy. Because of the budgetary impact, there is a very good chance that we won't see any further increases. So if it has a larger impact psychologically across the economy and people pull back on their spending, they pull out of demand, they bunker down a little bit, then it is absolutely likely that inflation will drop faster than what the Reserve Bank has been predicting at this point in time. And that will mean that we probably won't see any further rates. And it's very possible, in fact, that the next interest rate change we'll see is a reduction rather than increase.
So with all of that in mind about the interest rates, can you give us a little bit of insight as to where finance assessments going with relation to buffer rate and how people are being assessed?
Yeah, absolutely.
Is that going to change, or is it likely to change?
Yeah, so for anyone that doesn't know, what we're referring to with assessment rate is that essentially APRA in Australia, which dictates to banks what policy should or shouldn't look like. Well, they don't actually dictate to banks. They say that a responsible lender will do this, right? That's how they do it. And also, if you don't follow what a responsible lender would do, then very quickly they come in and tell you that you're going to be a naughty boy, and they do some
Slap
stuff.
you on the wrist?
Yeah, it's like, well, if you don't want to be a responsible lender, we'll take away your license, right? So you play along, guys.
Yeah. We're not telling you what you have to do, but you kind of have to do this.
But if you don't do it, it's the feather and stick, right? They've got a real big stick. So as part of being a prudent lender or a responsible lender, what they want is they want to stress test when they lend. And stress test looks like, okay, if we get an interest rate increase, how does that impact the borrower? Does it put them in hot water? Can they continue to afford the debt? And so when they're making an assessment, they will put normally a 2.5% interest rate buffer. So whatever the current interest rate is in the marketplace, they will add 2.5% to that, and that will be the assessment rate that's applied.
Yeah.
Now, that's dictated by APRA. It's not, the Reserve Bank and the current interest rates and the interest rate market, there's no direct mechanism or indirect mechanism there. It's quite literally them deciding what's right. And so, unfortunately, what I'm going to say is that whenever we get interest rate increases like this, we always look at the assessment rate, but because the assessment rate is decreasing or limiting how much people can borrow, and as a result of that, what they can, afford to buy. Unfortunately, every time that we've put pressure on that, APRA has just turned around and said, no, we think it's appropriate and we're not going to do anything about that.
Yeah.
Now, do I agree with that? I probably agree with it if we rewind the clock a little bit when we were, people were paying 4.5% on their home loan.
Yeah.
Right. Was it likely that the interest rate in Australia was going to return to a more
6 or
balanced
7.
long-term average? Yes, of course. It was never going to stay. We had Australia's lowest ever in history interest rate, right?
Yeah.
The likelihood that it stays there forever is pretty light on.
Very slim.
Yeah.
They're not here just to be your friend.
Yeah, 100%. But, when people are paying 6.5 and 7, is it likely to go to 9.5?
Yeah.
Probably not.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, again, every time we just see that APRA says, no, we think we're being appropriate. What if it does happen? Which, to be fair, there are circumstances that could happen that would drive that. But
Is there risk when that happens that, the lenders would start to claw back property or?
Nah.
No,
realistically, well, that's an interesting thing in itself, right? And so, sorry to go completely off track for a second.
I know, I'm rabbit holing. I'm so sorry.
No, I want a rabbit hole too. I love rabbit holes.
Yeah.
Okay, so here's the interesting thing. And again, we're going to come back to blood in the streets and property crash, right? Because I hear that every single day. Australia's property is going to crash. It's overcooked.
Yeah.
All
People
of those
love
things.
the drama, don't they? Like,
gosh,
straight
I
to
tell
the
you.
It's like
drama.
because so many people are holding on to it to say that, told you, we're right, told you so.
100%. Okay, so let's not forget that the average loan to valuation ratio in Australia, if we look at the whole Australian property market, is about 27%.
Yep.
Or thereabouts. Sorry, don't quote me. I'm not 100% sure what that number is. I have too many numbers in my head. But it's something like that, right? It's about 27%, right? So if a property in Australia is only leveraged to 27%, let's be honest, how wrong would everything need to go before people are forced to sell?
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah,
Yeah.
100%.
Or have to liquidate their property portfolio or they're going to go broke.
Yeah.
Like that is a long, long, long way.
Yeah.
Now, again, do I appreciate that? We spoke about this earlier. Younger people who have leveraged themselves to the hilt, they've gone in on a 5% government-backed home loan and they've gone into a greenfield house of land package, which they've overpaid for.
Yeah.
Right? Do they hurt in circumstances where interest rates increase? Absolutely. They do.
Yeah.
But don't misunderstand that is a small percentage of the marketplace.
Yeah.
It is not the entire market. And this is the thing. Everyone's like, yeah, but look at this guy who's struggling. Yes, he's struggling. And I feel sorry for the fact that he's struggling. I genuinely do.
Yeah.
But he's not going to crash the market.
Right.
No.
The market is so much bigger than that.
Yeah.
And it's in a good financial situation generally. Like, hell, I'd love to have a 27% loan valuation ratio because I'm not there.
So what advice would you give to young Australians wanting to get ahead and build wealth in this country?
Well, number one, I'm going to say educate yourself.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right? Because the reality is it starts with that.
Yeah.
So you've got to maybe think about unlearning some of the things you've learned, and that's no disrespect. But even just being curious about, is there another way? Should I be doing what my friends are doing? Should I be doing what my parents are telling me I should do? I'm not saying they're right or wrong. I don't know what they're saying. But I think just being very respectfully distrustful of everything you're being told, including from me.
Yeah.
One of the things I will openly say is don't believe me.
No. We're the same.
okay
Like all Em and I ever do, especially I can speak for myself, I can't speak for Em, but I can because we are in business together. We have been for the last 10 years and been doing this. But we're just sharing what we've done.
Our experience.
Is it right? Is it wrong? Is it the be all end all? Absolutely not.
Yeah.
There's so many people out there doing
Other strategies,
bigger deals, doing other things to make money, like whether it's crypto, shares. There's so many different
100%.
strategies and vehicles out there.
Yeah.
But our vehicle that we've used that's increased our life amazingly and it's profited and we've got an amazing life now.
Yeah.
That's what we want to share, that we didn't start with a silver spoon in our mouth. We didn't start with a handout. If you're thinking that this is too hard for you, this is an impossible, the real estate market's going to crash, I can guarantee you there's someone in your friend group or at least someone you even went to school with that is going to still be a multi-million-dollar property developer or owner in the next couple of years.
Absolutely.
If it's okay for him or her to do it, why can't you?
Why not you? Yeah.
Or the only difference is going to be what seminars are they going to do?
Yeah.
What podcasts they listen to? Where are they getting their education from? And what's giving them the confidence to go, actually, I'm going to take that first step. And then I'm going to take the next step.
Yeah.
What I wouldn't give to be that age again
Oh my
and
God.
be exposed to this type of education
Wait,
and strategy.
are we negotiating? Because I want to put some money on the table too here, right? I really do.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay, so look, I agree with you wholeheartedly. Aaron, and one of the things that's really consistent that I've been lucky enough and fortunate enough to be able to watch with regard to people's property journeys and their wealth journeys for now 20 years is that it's not a starting position thing. It's not it genuinely isn't a smartest person in the room thing.
No, absolutely
like
not.
success is not driven by the stuff that people think
No
it's
way.
driven by.
No way.
Right? Like the people that are successful are just the ones that have said, why not me?
Yeah.
Why can't I do this?
Yes.
What if I just take one step forward down this, if I take a step in this
Stay
journey,
curious.
Yeah.
right? And
What's
what
the next
happens
step look
then?
like?
What's the next step? What's the
Yeah.
next step, right? And they've just got out of their comfort zones. They've let some stuff go, you know, and some of the education, sorry, not our education, but the previous, of the standard way that everything is done.
Yep.
And they've just started down on that path, right? They've done hard yards, they've educated themselves, they've done all those things. But honestly, these are normal people. I cannot stress that enough.
Yeah. And
In
look,
fact, the wealthy people, interestingly, people say to me all the time, like, they come into the education, into the communities, the various communities, and they go, okay, well, what drives success here? I feel like I'm not wealthy enough and all those things. And I said, no, you don't understand. I would actually say to you that if I watch people's wealth journeys, the wealthier someone is when they come into these communities, the less likely they're
100%.
going to be successful.
1,000%. It's about
In 5 years'
hunger.
time, they may be 3 or 4 steps further ahead than where they were.
Yeah.
But the person who came in the room at the same time with nothing is 20
It's a
steps ahead.
willingness to learn, it's a willingness to take action, and it's a fire in the belly. It's the hungriest person in the room, guaranteed, will get the biggest results every day of the week. It doesn't, in fact, it's a hindrance. If people have learned previous strategies and ways of doing things, and we've got to unlearn all of that stuff and get them into a new way of thinking, because often the very thing standing in the way of them and where they want to be is, surprise, them. So if you could speak to a room full of,
As I often do,
but if you had 1,000 very hungry investors standing in front of you right now, what is just the one thing that you would tell them to focus on while everybody else is distracted by the fear?
I would say educate yourself and look for the opportunity. Yeah. So in other words, because I'm talking to two different people, if that makes sense. If there's 1,000 people in the room, I go, okay, well, are there 1,000 people that understand what I'm talking about, or are there 1,000 people that don't?
Yeah.
True.
And they're two very different rooms, to be fair.
Yeah.
So what I would say if it was 1,000 normies, right? And I'm sorry, normies is a term I use with love for normal people.
Yep.
That in other words, that don't operate in our world, because I'm very conscious of the fact that we kind of operate in a bit of a different
We're a
world.
bit
And
weird.
we also forget that as well. Like we can have some, like I get caught out all the time sometimes,
Yeah.
like we both, we probably all do, having a conversation with someone and all of a sudden you just start talking as if we would sit around and talk.
Yeah.
And you
Yeah.
sort of see them just sort of
You
glaze
don't
over.
realise it's not normal.
Yeah.
And you see the
Oh,
person
no.
you're speaking to just kind of like looking
Completely
at you
glaze over and go,
Yeah.
what on earth are you on
And all of a
about?
sudden you're like, I'm talking absolute gibberish to
I
you
could
right
be
now.
talking
You've
in
got
another
no idea.
language. Yeah.
Yeah, I won't get into life friends and rich friends, because you guys know that that I talk about that, and I'm quite passionate about that as
You
well.
can speak
But
to that
absolutely.
if you want.
yeah, my life friends, thankfully, are the ones that keep me grounded on that stuff.
Yeah.
And I'm so unfair to them, right? Because a lot of the time I'm referring to them as normies. They're wonderful people. I love them to bits. But they don't operate in this world. Most of them don't even know what I do.
Yeah.
Interestingly enough. And it's not because they don't care about me. They care tons about me.
But
It's
you
just
have a
this is not
different
their
relationship
world,
with them.
right?
Yeah.
It's not their world. And so, if I was talking about a lot of this stuff with them, instantly their eyes are going to glaze over. They're not interested.
Yeah.
No.
And they don't want to know about it. And that's okay.
Yeah.
I think
You
it's mandatory. You need to have friends from every walk of
Absolutely.
life to keep you grounded, to
Yeah.
keep you balanced.
And a lot of the time, and you guys would have experienced this too, you'll get that question about, so what actually is it about what you do? And you kind of open up a little bit and da-da-da-da-da. And they go, they see you being successful and making money and all those things. They want in on that. And then you start talking about what that looks like, and they go, no, yeah, I mean,
They're like, oh,
too hard.
yeah.
I
I thought you just took a pill and you got rich.
No, yeah, right? Oh, it just fell out of the sky.
Yeah.
Well, interestingly, no. The one I get more than anything else is I'm lucky.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
don't
We've been so
even
lucky.
get me
We talk about
Those
triggering,
50
right?
deals, mate, they just happened like.
Yeah, it makes me twitch.
Okay, yes, fine, I'm lucky.
You could be just as lucky if you wanted to sacrifice 10 years of your life and just focus on one thing and make it happen.
Yes. Anyway, so if I was talking to a room full of normies, I'd say get educated.
Yeah.
Because the more that you educate yourself around this, the more that you are, respectful, cautiously curious about all of this, the more you're going to start to see the opportunity.
Yeah.
Okay. And then you're going to move into that room, which is the other room that I'm talking to, where it's like, oh, these guys get it. They've educated. They've put the energy into that. They've invested in
They've
themselves.
had exposure in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah, they get it, right? Like the blindfold has been lifted from their eyes, and they go, wait, okay, I can see an opportunity there. I can see how I can turn that into a thing that someone wants to buy off of me.
Yep.
And as a result of that, I'm going to make some money. And those guys, again, it's about look for the opportunity. So stop listening to all the people that are just suffering from the rug pull psychologically and start going, hang on, what opportunity is this creating? Where is it moved? Where is it shifted?
And it's very interesting you say that. And I speak with so much passion on this because literally I'm walking, talking proof of somebody who started with nothing and was able to go on and create wealth. So, I really, really speak wholeheartedly to people out there that, if you're sitting there feeling like this isn't possible for someone, quote unquote, like you, then think again, because it's not about what you have now. It's about what's up here and the willingness to think differently, think outside the box and implement strategies that can seriously change your life. So, I speak to everyone on this and, if you want to dub them normies or whatever, it doesn't matter.
No.
All it needs and requires is a willingness and a hunger to want to change your life, because there's strategies out there that oh my God, if implemented, and that's the other piece.
I was going to say,
is the taking action.
You got to do.
Well, taking the action,
so that's
you've
the
got
next
to
bit.
do the doing. You can't just go and sit in the seminar
Yes.
room and learn this information, then go back home and do your 9 to 5 or run that business, and then in 12 months' time wonder why you don't have $1 million property portfolio.
Yeah.
But even speaking to taking the action, it's also, I have a big passion for trying to communicate with people about, if you go to a seminar, you go to a conference, you start dipping your toe into a strategy, please see out that strategy before swapping to another one.
Yeah, I know.
Because every strategy works.
Yeah.
Whether it's subdivision, whether it's development, whether it's flipping, whether it's crypto, whether it's shares, whether it's every strategy around wealth creation works, because it's in our faces every day. We see so many wealthy people that come from all different walks of life.
Stay in your
Real
lane.
estate's not the only vehicle. Shares isn't the only vehicle.
No.
But the amount of times I've seen, and you've seen this 1,000 times over as well, you'll see some people in a seminar room that you've seen 3-5 years earlier, and you've seen them bounce from one strategy to another, and they're no
Shiny
further ahead.
object-itis,
They're
we
actually
like to call
they're not even further ahead. They're actually behind where they were 5 years ago, because they've just wasted 5 years bouncing from one strategy to another, hoping for that thing to fall out of the sky and land in their lap.
Yeah, well, I again, lovingly, I'm sorry, sometimes I sound so mean with what it's not actually how I feel. It's just the word that I use because it keeps it really clean in my mind. But we call them education junkies, right? So they are just bouncing from education to education, strategy to strategy. And the reality is they don't get traction with any of them. So I agree with you. And I sum that up with do. So what I mean by that is that, a lot of the time when it comes to, when I'm educating people around this stuff, it's like, please do. If nothing else, now that you've learned, do it. Because if you do nothing, if you go back to your world, then, well, if you always do what you've always done, then you're always going to get what you've always got, right? So
nothing
there's a reason.
Nothing changes.
Nothing changes, nothing changes.
My granddad said it best, and I've said this so many times, you've heard me say this before, but if you want to catch a rabbit, you can't chase more than one. And if you think about that literally, whoosh, it's literally nearly impossible to chase 2 rabbits and catch one. So in closing, I have one more question for you.
Sure.
What is one thing that cost you less than $100, and it can't be a book,
that
had the most impact on your life?
One thing?
One thing. The one thing that cost you less than $100 that had the most impact on your life. Can't be a book.
Okay, I would say coffee. Now, yes,
Everyone's got a bias, mate. Everyone's got a
that was
bias.
so unexpected.
Absolutely 100%. I am, and I have spent way more than $100 on coffee.
I was going to say.
Let's be honest. Yes, I'm a caffeine junkie, but that's actually not my point. My point here is that I have had so many conversations, valuable conversations over coffee, right? You guys, others, because in return for a coffee, buying someone a coffee, you get time, and that time that they're willing to give you is such a valuable resource, right?
Yes.
And ordinarily, if professionally, if you were buying my time professionally, believe me, it's a lot more.
It's a lot more than a
More
coffee.
than a coffee.
Right.
But you value a coffee.
But the value that I've got out of others, for the price of a coffee has just been immeasurable. And particularly here, I'm talking about my money friends, my rich friends, right? So it's the people where it's like, oh, you know a thing, I want to know more about this thing.
Yeah.
Can I tell you more? Can I buy you a coffee? And you get the opportunity to pick their brains.
Well, it's funny because we say to our students all the time about networking and building your team and trying to meet real estate agents, things like that.
Yeah,
you're just trying to ask them, buy them a coffee.
Buy them a coffee. Right?
Grab 15 minutes of their time.
I absolutely love that. That was gold. Totally unexpected, but I think that really will set a lot of people thinking.
Yeah.
Cool.
Thank you so
My
much
pleasure.
for your time. Thanks for joining us on the
Mate,
pod.
thank you so much. It's always a pleasure. It's always we could sit here for hours and keep going and go down some more rabbit holes and open up a whole new list of conversations.
Yes.
But we'll put some in the can. We'll put them in the pocket for
And we'll come back
future
and chase some
episode.
other rabbits, shall we?
100%.
I think a lot
Let's
of
do it
people
for
will get a
sure.
lot out of today. So if you've got a
Thanks,
lot
Abby.
out of this session, please click the link below and subscribe. And we look forward to seeing you on the next pod.
Thanks,
See you guys.
You've been listening to Freedom Renegades, for those who are built different.
Stay curious, stay intentional, and we'll see you next time.